So, 1998, Blade, starring Wesley Snipes as the titular character. Honestly, I really like this film. I just straight out the bat, I love it. It's a brilliant. It's a brilliant introduction to Marvel movies, especially. Well, given that this was the 90s, it was the first proper sort of big budget Marvel movie, because before that we've only had the Fantastic Four, the Captain America, and they were terrible. But yeah, but this film's it's a good introduction to Marvel films as a whole. But it also ironically shows something that Marvel doesn't do today, which is adult movies. Because Blade is weirdly enough rated 18. It's it's rated higher than Deadpool was, which is weird. No, but what I like about the plot, I actually really like the story in this. It gets a bit iffy at the end. The third act sort of puts in a few things and sort of jigs some stuff around. Other than that, though, I think it's a really good story. It's not like well, it is world ending, but it's nothing. It's nothing like you wouldn't expect in a comic book. Vampires exist. Blade himself is a half-breed, half vampire. There's a vampire council. They try and coexist with humanity as much as possible, following certain rules and stick in certain areas and things like that. Which I actually kind of like in this film. We see in like other films like where vampires are like, we have to keep ourselves secret from humanity and coexist with them. Like, I hate to say it, but Twilight, with them being vegetarians. But I think this film actually did it really well. It's like, vampires do exist. They live all around us. It's just that they ironically work the graveyard shifts for jobs, ironically named. I also like how they address the vampires in this film. Specifically how they look at it as more of a scientific thing rather than a religious thing. They say like, oh, vampires aren't cursed or anything. They just say, oh yeah, it's just a mutation from like centuries ago. It's just a different branch of humanity. Their blood's different. That's why they have to drink other people's blood. They say like, oh, like when the doctor, what's her name again? I can't remember her name. Vicky, that was it. But when she gets, I think that was it anyway. Anyway, when she gets bit, I like how they say like, oh yeah, we've only got a certain amount of time to try and catch it, and they inject it with garlic. It's like, that's clever. I like that. It's like, normally if you're bitten by a vampire, that's it. It's, there's no saving you. It's like, oh yeah, if you catch it in time, you can cure it with garlic, which is nice. It's a cool little thing. They say like, silver can kill them because of its chemical compound reacting to their body. They say like, oh, yeah, they really do take a lot of detail. They take time and care into the detail of the vampires and how they work in this world, which I really like. I really like that. The characters in this movie are, some of them are hit and miss, but the majority of them I do enjoy. Wesley Snipes' Blade is fantastic. He plays the role seriously, but not. He plays the role seriously, but not too much so that it doesn't come off a comic book. You know, like for most of the film, he's like, you know, spitting off one-liners and grunting and being like, you know, his being Blade. And then, like, you know, near the start of the film, when he gets shot at, he bounces off a thing. You know, he looks at the guys and he's like, what? Why would you do that? You know, what? You know, you see what's going on. You know, he's got some really good comedy parts in this. The side characters, Whistler is by far my favourite side character. Just because they do so much visual storytelling with him. You know, I mean, we get the scene where he sits down with the female lead, and he talks about how how a vampire came to his home, killed his wife and kids, so he killed a vampire. But beyond that, we get, you know, we do get a lot of visual storytelling with him, like the fact that he's wearing a brace, you know, shows that he's been doing this for a while. The fact that, you know, he knows his stuff about cars and guns. He's an intelligent guy. He's a mechanic. But you know, when he dies, it's upsetting. I'm not gonna lie. It's sad. I loved him as a character. The female lead, I like how they used her. Like we meet her in a hospital. We see that she is a doctor, and then that comes back later in the film. I love that. Like it's like, oh yeah, we're not forgetting about this character's like strengths. You know, we're taking that, we're fitting it into the story, which I think is really good. Most times a film will be like, oh, this character's a doctor, so it'll be like, okay, they are 90% of the time in the lab. So no, she, you know, helps Blade make new weapons and things. The villain though, Frost. What can I say about this guy? But he's Mr. 90s himself. Okay. He's got the moosey hair, the leather jacket, sometimes with no jacket at all. He's just wearing like an open button shirt. You know, he's like fight the power and all that. It's like he's a good villain. For Marvel's like first take in an 18 movie, he's a good villain. He really is. You know, he's threatening enough to be intimidating, but not too jokey as to break it. You know, like, you know, he cracks jokes here and there, but he's still the guy that you would know that like oh yeah, he's gonna murder you if he needs to. You know, he only gets really jokey near the end when he thinks that he's won. You know, but that's because, you know, it's fair dues to him. You know, it literally, if like one thing hadn't gone wrong, he would have won. The other stuff like the lighting, camera work, sound design in this film is absolutely brilliant. I really enjoy it. I will say though that the chase scenes with the cars are very oddly edited. They you can tell they sped it up without like, you know, you can tell that they just filmed it normally, the car just going like 30 miles per hour and then turning a corner, and then they've just sped it up, which it looks too goofy. I think it looks too silly. And another thing is, again, beating a dead horse with this one, the CGI at the end. The 90s was not a good, the late 90s, early noughties was not a good time for CGI. Weirdly enough, we got Jurassic Park like earlier that decade. So how the change happened, I have no idea, but God, it was big. Other than that though, I think the only problems I have with this film is some of the editing and the fact that they cut out Michael Morbius at the end. When I found out that deleted scene existed, I was like, why didn't we get that film? Why didn't we get that franchise, it would have been so much better than the shit we got with Jared Leto. Yeah, other than that, I think if you're looking for a good time, just a chill hour plus to watch this movie, just go for it. It's a good film. It's a solid film. You don't have to pay much attention. You don't have to know the character. You can just watch it on the back. You can watch it in the background. You can sit down and watch it. It's a good round family film. Well, I say family film. It's 18. And that, I would say, out of 10, I'd give it a solid 9 or 8.